Leave a
Yep.
request.
There we go.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Really excited for you all to have joined us this evening. For those who I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I am Dylan Pine, and I am the Senior Director of Development here at Volunteer New York. Volunteer New York is proud to be the sponsor of the Leadership Westchester program. A little bit about Volunteer New York before I pass the virtual mic to David Severance, the facilitator of Leadership Westchester. Volunteer New York, our mission is to mobilize our community to address its greatest challenges. We envision a community that is vibrant, resilient, and equitable, and we believe that volunteerism and civic engagement are critical strategies to achieving that vision. And the Leadership Westchester program, which you'll hear about in a little bit, has been a program that's operated for over 25 years and has helped community leaders like yourself hone your mission and find your purpose here in the community. So with that said, I will pass the mic to David Severance, who will introduce himself and share a little bit about the program.
Thank you, Dylan. My name is David Severance. Good evening, everyone. So delighted to see all of you here. I'm delighted for your interest in the Leadership Westchester program. I facilitate the program, and I'm here with two current class members, Natasha Weinstein and Betsali Espichan. Although Betsali, for some reason, your tile says David Severance. Is that what it says on your end too?
Yes.
Strange to
Yes,
me.
I
Okay,
just
well,
changed it.
okay,
Sorry.
got it. All right, perfect. So what we're going to do is I'll explain a little bit about how the program works and what it's all about, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. And you can feel free to direct your questions to me as the facilitator or either of our two current class members, Natasha or Betsali, to give you their input from the viewpoint of somebody who's in the class this year. And we'll stop promptly at 7 o'clock or before that if you run out of questions. The purpose here tonight is for us to be able to explain to you what the experience is like or give you some sense of it and have you answer any questions. Of course, I'm available after tonight for more questions if something comes up for you, but we wanted to make this time available to anyone who wanted to know more about the program and has questions about it. So let me just start by asking you, how many of you have heard about the program before from someone who is a graduate or a current class member? Just raise your hand if you would, please, so I can get a sense. Okay, looks like maybe around half or so. That's fine. So if you've never heard of the program before, or it just kind of like popped up on your feed or something, that's perfectly fine. If you're more familiar with it or you know one or two people who've been through it, then you've probably heard some input from others. The program, as Dylan said, has been going for over 25 years now. It is the premier leadership experience in Westchester. And it's designed to provide you the opportunity to make a transformational change in your life regarding how you lead yourself, how you create the future that you want to experience for yourself and the world around you, and how you can lead others. Now, it's not a simple or casual type of a program. It's a program designed to have a high impact on your life, and therefore there's something that comes along with it, which is a high kind of commitment to the process. So let me explain how the process works. The program begins each year in October, and it runs through June. So it's more or less following the school year. We are just opening the application period right now for classes, and we'll be handling applications from now into July. And so we form the class. The class begins in October. The program meets 10 times over those 9 months. 7 of those days are half-day sessions, meeting 8:30 to 1:30. And 3 of the sessions are full-day sessions. There's an opening day retreat in October. There's a final retreat, full-day retreat at the end of the program in June. And then there's one kind of in the middle, actually in March. So you're committing to 10 different sessions over the course of the program. And there's some other commitments as well. We put everyone into small groups called leadership peer groups. That's an opportunity for you to get to know some of your classmates better. And so each peer group will be meeting once in person between the sessions. Now you might call these requirements for the course. This is not a course where you kind of sign up and then show up whenever you're able to make it. You're expected to attend every one. And so it is a significant commitment of your time and effort over the course of the period. We want to make that clear to everybody. There are other programs out there that people sign up for, and then they show up when they feel like it, and they don't show up when they don't, whatever. And it's not that kind of a program. People will tell you that the commitment is intense, but the payoff is intense too. And so you've got the commitment of the time, the 10 sessions over the 9 months. You have the once a month meeting with your small peer group in between the sessions. And we also ask everyone to read 3 books over the course of the program. The first book comes with your tuition, and we give it to you before the program starts. We actually ask you to read a little bit of it before the first day. And then the other 2 books you can choose along the way. You can ask me for help with that depending on what your particular leadership interests are. The program really is broken down into 3 different kind of segments. The first segment, which covers the first 3 sessions of the program, October, November, and December, is about looking inside yourself and understanding who you are, what you care about, and what it is you want to contribute to the world. We take the approach that leadership is best studied or learned or practiced from the inside out. That is understanding who you are, what you want to create in the world, how you can create it. That kind of stuff is foundational to how you go out and actually lead yourself and lead others. The second part of the program is taking that kind of awareness that you start to gain over the first part of the program, and then you say to yourself, okay, how do I start to actualize this particular way of leading? That is, how do I bring myself to relationships around me to create impact, to create connection, to create collaboration? And so the middle part of the program might be more like what some people think of when they think of a leadership program. We talk about skills and actions that you need to master to be really effective at creating powerful relationships with others. It doesn't matter whether you lead a team or an organization or not. Everyone's in a position to contribute wherever they are, whether it's professionally or personally. And people who go through the course will tell you that the things that we talk about don't just apply to your professional life or your business career, but they apply in other places too. And that's especially true of the second part of the program, where we're focusing on interpersonal mastery skills. How do you interact with others in a way that people come away saying, I'm really glad that person's in my life. I choose to really commit myself to that particular relationship with that person. And then the third part of the program, which is the last 3 sessions or so, is where we kind of zoom out a little bit further and we look at the leader's role in the team dynamic. That is, what is the role of a team leader? What are the dynamics that the team leader ought to know about in order to effectively collaborate with other team members? And again, this doesn't mean you need to be leading the team. If you volunteer to serve on a board, or if you're a member of some kind of a group at your church or other faith community, or maybe you just volunteer somewhere, in all those cases, you're probably working together with other people, and you have the opportunity to be part of something that's bigger than just you. And so being able to be successful like that, of course, involves a whole lot of leadership mastery stuff. And so we want to talk a little bit in this last part of the program about what that's all about. And so we spend time talking about such team dynamics as decision making and things like psychological safety, like how do you get people to really truly be honest and be willing to speak up on a team, especially when something might be going wrong. Of course, one of the things we commonly see in teams is that they don't speak up, right? If there's a problem that somebody sees, they kind of brush it under the rug, or maybe they, point the finger at somebody else. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong in the team dynamic, and you've probably experienced some of those in your life at one place or another. And so we want to spend some time in the latter part of the program doing that. We also spend some time looking at what it takes to volunteer to the community at the level of being a board member of a nonprofit organization. We kind of get into that towards the end of the program too. So those are kind of the 3 main buckets that the program covers in terms of content. Any questions so far? If anyone has a question, just raise your physical hand if you like, or just click on the hand raise button and I'll answer a question or 2. If there aren't any yet, I'll be happy to move on to the next piece, which is about the folks who participate. Many people wonder, am I the right kind of person for Leadership Westchester? And I want to say, we're not looking for any particular kind of person when we build the class. Every class is unique. Every class is a creation of all the wonderful, fantastic, talented, dynamic people who apply for the program every year. You should know that when you apply, not everyone gets into the program. And some people get in the second year they apply, some get in the third year they apply. But we construct a class purposely with a wide degree of diversity of many different types. You might be in a class and you might be sitting next to an artist, or you might be sitting next to an accountant, or you might be sitting next to a minister or a government person or an educator. Certainly, you'd have other people in the class who work somewhere in the for-profit world and the nonprofit world. A wide variety of folks that you may never come across in your everyday life. And many people who go through the program say, I love being, one thing I love about being in the program is I get to spend time with people that I normally wouldn't because I move in certain circles. And the program puts me together with a whole lot of other people that I probably would never meet otherwise. So you can't look at yourself and say, I'm just the right person or I'm not the right person for this experience. Similarly, we want everyone to understand that we're not looking for people who are only CEOs of organizations or have some kind of big fancy title. We're looking for people who are interested in growing themselves so that they can make a greater positive impact in the community, because that's what we believe in leadership is about. And so it doesn't matter whether you run your own business and it's a small business. It doesn't matter if you're a small cog in a large machine. Doesn't matter what your background is, what industries you've been in, what your salary is. None of that stuff really matters in terms of whether you're appropriate for the program. What really matters is how much you care about contributing to the community around you and how it is you want to grow yourself. So I hope everyone gets the sense that everyone is a valid candidate for this opportunity. Now, who are the people who typically apply? Well, we get people from all walks of life, all spaces and places. Typically, the youngest person in the class is in their mid to late 20s. The oldest person in the class is usually around 70, maybe even 75, and everything in between. So it doesn't matter what your age is, doesn't matter what your background is. We believe everyone has something to contribute to everyone else in the class. The older folks have a lot of experience to share with the youngers, but the youngers see the world in ways that is a good education, perhaps, or good input or perspective for older folks as well. And so that's another kind of dimension of diversity that we're looking for when we put the class together. So who are the people who typically apply to Leadership Westchester? Well, there's several different kind of archetypes, if you will. One is people who are in transition. People who are saying, I'm not really sure what's next for me, but I know that I'm not going to continue where I've been professionally or personally, and I need to kind of map out where I'm going from here. And the program is certainly designed to help people gain a lot more clarity about where they need to go from here. What's next? Another group of people who typically apply are people who want to grow their personal or professional network in the county. Maybe people who've worked in the city for many years, and even though they live in the county, they've never done much until now. Or maybe they just moved into the county, or maybe they just decided that they need to make more connections throughout the county. And the Leadership Westchester program is a great opportunity for that, because you'll meet people from all different places throughout the county doing different kinds of things in different kinds of circles. When you graduate, you get to become part of the Leadership Westchester alumni community, which has almost 500 people throughout the county in all places. We have the former mayor of New Rochelle as a graduate of the program. We have county legislators who are graduates of the program. The head of schools in White Plains is a graduate of the program. All kinds of folks throughout the county that you can call on afterwards if you choose to, that can become part of your network. And so a lot of people find the Leadership Westchester experience as a great networking opportunity. If that's something that's of interest to you, there's a place for you to do that here. Third part of kind of a third bucket is people who are often in their 40s or 50s, could be younger, but people who are often in their 40s or 50s and 60s. They come to me and they say, I've been pretty successful in my life. I've done a lot of good things. I've had some good roles and some good jobs and some good titles, but I feel like something's still missing in my life. There's something more that I want to make of my life than I have in the past. I'm clear that I want to make the next 10 years of my life count more than the previous 10 years did. And how I interpret those kinds of comments is people looking for some sense of fulfillment in their life. They may have had a job, they may have had a number of jobs that they liked or disliked, bosses they liked or disliked. Maybe they made some money along the way, they have a decent house or whatever, but they know that something's missing. And what that missing piece is a sense of fulfillment, a sense of meaning and purpose in their life. And if any of you have ever had that kind of a thought for yourself, Leadership Westchester is a place to come for that. In fact, it's probably one of the best places to go for that because A, there aren't too many places where you can really dive into what gives you fulfillment. How do you define meaning and value in your life? And secondly, the Leadership Westchester program is 9 months long. It gives you an awful lot of time to think about that. Now, I work with people all around the world. I'm a certified executive coach. I do team facilitation with teams in for-profits and nonprofits around the US and around the world. And having worked with all these people in different places, I recognize that this is kind of a common yearning for people. Doesn't matter who you are. At one time in life or another, you may feel like you want to make more of your life, but you're not sure how. And there's lots of leadership programs out there and there are other programs, but they're typically a few days. They might be a weekend or a long weekend, or maybe it's a week-long boot camp or something like that. And those things certainly have value. But one thing that makes the Leadership Westchester program unique is it's so long. There's so much time for reflection in there. And that reflective process is kind of encouraged throughout the program. You get to meet all of your classmates and you're in your small peer groups with them all the time. And there's homework assignments designed to kind of prompt your thinking and reflection. And so if you have some kind of thoughts about like, the more fundamental big questions of life or big issues of life, there's almost no better place that you can go to, none that I know of, that give you so much opportunity to do that. So those are some of the people who come to the program. Those are kind of like archetypes or buckets that I see year after year after year. But we have all kinds of folks who are not exactly in one of those things. Some of them are people who just want to start a new business and they need to kind of get input from other people, or they want to learn more about what people think about business in general, or they want somebody to stimulate their thinking. Or maybe we just have someone who has just been like, home raising the kids for X number of years, and now they want to get out into the community again and talk with people and develop some more relationships. All kinds of situations, folks coming through the program. So I've talked a little bit about how the program works, a little bit about the curriculum, talked a little bit about, the right kind of person or a person who might be a good candidate for this process. We call it an experience because that's what it really is. It's more than just a class or a course. I feel it's more like an experience that you go through. And many people will tell you, maybe you've heard this from some of the graduates, that they can divide their life into before Leadership Westchester and after Leadership Westchester, because there was something about that experience that really changed for them or changed their life in some way. And so we want to think of it as an experience that you go through as a gift to yourself that you can take with you forever after. Okay, I've done enough talking. It's not my style to talk all day long. Actually, as a coach, I ask a lot more questions than talk. So I'd like to turn the floor over to you, please. Who has a question about anything I've said or about anything else that I haven't addressed yet? Please raise your hand. Yes. Is it Margie?
Margie, yes, thank you.
Margie, thank you, Margie. Yep.
How many people usually attend over the course of the 9 months?
20 people. We cap it at 20 because one of the things I did not mention is I work with everyone personally along the way. I have personal coaching conversations with everyone a couple times over the course of the program, and other folks call me up. I make myself available to the class members throughout the process. So you get a coach, you get a personal life coach if you like, or executive coach if you want that, along the way if you want to take advantage of that. And so we cap it at 20 people. Thank you, Margie. Who else has a question? Yes, Deborah?
Hello. I'm just wondering about the dates of the classes and
Yep.
how soon would you publish them before the class was to begin?
They are published right now. And Tasha, would you mind putting into the chat the website? Thank you. The program, as Dylan mentioned in the beginning, is sponsored by Volunteer New York. Volunteer New York is the place to go for all things volunteer in the county, and Volunteer New York sponsors the program. And you'll find a page on there for the Leadership Westchester program. And that page has a couple of videos that you ought to watch that has a bunch of class members talking about their experience. It has some other information about the program, and it also has the list of all 10 dates. Because we require everyone to attend all the sessions, that's why we put the dates right on the application. If you can't make those dates, please don't apply, because it's not that kind of a program. Part of the magic of the program is everybody's there almost every time. Almost everybody's there almost every time. So you'll find the dates right there. The current application is available on that page. And we ask everybody actually when you sign the application that you say, I am already committing to these dates. We're really strict about that. Thank you, Deborah. Dwan, is it, please?
Hello, good evening. I have a quick question about kind of what's the hurdles to joining this program besides the time constraints that you see, the outside of the time that we're meeting, participation and input that we need to provide. You mentioned homework. What does that look like?
Yep. So the major commitments are attend all 10 sessions, attend all 9 of the peer group meetings in between, and you get to set those whenever you want with your peer group. You can meet when and where you like. There is a homework assignment after every session. It's tied to the theme of that session. It's designed to take 30 to 60 minutes or so on your own, and then you're encouraged to share with your classmates and your peer group to discuss that stuff. Some peer groups are very homework heavy and they discuss that stuff a lot. Others are not so homework heavy, and that's okay. I give freedom to each peer group to kind of handle that as they wish. And then you read the 3 books along the way. So those are the major commitments of your time, energy, and effort. There are other assignments along the way that we ask people to do. For example, we ask everyone to interview one classmate and introduce that classmate in 3 minutes to the class. And so there are some extra assignments like that along the way. So you can expect to spend a couple of hours of time in between each session. I'd like to bring in Natasha and Betsali to talk a little bit about the commitment, because they're going through it right now, and perhaps they'd have a slightly different perspective. What would you ladies like to add, please?
David always says you make of the class what you put into it, and I think that's very true. Each assignment ends up being unique to the person in what they're getting out of it. And I don't want to give too much away, but I have found some assignments I've sat there and labored, and some assignments came to me within 5 minutes, even though they were designed for 60 minutes, right? Sometimes those bursts of inspiration happen, and that can happen with anything you're working on. It has been, and I don't want to hide the fact that I work for Volunteer New York, so I was very familiar with the program before I even came into it for this class year. It has been one of the most rewarding moments. The peer group time, the connections I've made, and the homework has only helped me along the way. So it is a time commitment, as David says, but it's worth it.
Thank you, Tasha. Betsali, something to add?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with Tasha. I think that you get what you put in, and I think the more that you invest of yourself and just try to stay open-minded really helps. I think the diversity within your group, and like just my peer group, I love my peer group. We like even meet outside. And you get a chance to switch peer groups as well. I know David might go into this. Um, and it just has been very rewarding. I think the homework assignments don't take as long as you think they're going to take, and talking it through with your peer groups or people in the class when you have the time, it makes it a little bit easier because everybody's going along with the same pace. And I also found like doing the audio books is very helpful, and speaking with David is very helpful as well.
Thank you. So there's so many pieces to this experience. I think it's good that they're bringing out that the experience is what you make of it. You know, what we provide is a platform for personal growth and transformation. And some people will spend more time on the homework assignments, and almost all the homework assignments are designed to be expandable. You can spend 30 minutes, you can spend 60 minutes, you can spend 2 hours, you can spend 5 hours. And some people do. They might find this particular assignment is especially rewarding for them, so they'll spend a lot more time on it. They'll go further than the kind of the minimum that the homework assignment, asks for. So you can assemble all these different parts of the program, the sessions themselves, the readings. I attach articles to follow-up messages after many of the sessions if you want to read further into some of the topics that we did. You can meet all your classmates, and I encourage everyone to meet the classmates for coffee or lunch or whatever in between. A lot of people do. And there are homework assignments and other assignments, and people come to me and they want some personal coaching on one thing or another. And if they're open to it, I give them more assignments just for them. It has nothing to do with the class, but has to do with their own particular interests and goals. And so it's a very, very rich learning opportunity for you to assemble in the way that makes sense to you. Does that answer your question, Dwan? Great, glad to hear it. One thing Betsali mentioned was the peer groups. We do reshuffle the peer groups halfway through the program, so that whoever you're with, you get a chance to get to know those folks better in the first half, and then we reshuffle them, you get to work with some other folks in the second half of the program. And so we want everyone to get to know each other better. We want everyone to support each other's learning and growth as they go along. And there's a really rich discussion that develops in the peer groups about one topic or another of interest to them. Okay, Maria, thank you. Please.
Um, I'm in the emergency management sort of field, so everything's a disaster. And hurricane season starting for me starting June till the end of November. One minute I'm here, the next minute I'm not. So I unfortunately cannot control more or less where I have to go and support somewhere else in the States.
Mhm.
Will that matter if it kind of falls? I mean, ideally, I will try not to get deployed during that time, but there's unfortunately something that is out of my hands. Will that be something that I could work with you on that?
That would be something we would have to talk about at the application stage, honestly. You know, the reason that we want everyone there for every session is because if someone is missing from a session, everyone else loses something because that person's unique background and insight and knowledge and words get lost. And so we don't want that to happen. And so if you're in a situation where you don't know where you'll be at a given time and it might happen to fall on one of those months, that is something we really need to talk about and think carefully about before accepting you into the program. So Maria, for you and for anyone else, I'd be happy to talk with you further after tonight to learn a little bit more about your situation and see what kind of room we might have to manage unpredictable stuff. But we do feel strongly that building relationships along the way is very important, so we need to be there. And the fact that any person can say the one thing that's going to be the best takeaway for you that day. If that person's missing, you lose that. And I've heard many people go through the program, and many of them would say something like, you know what? The most powerful thing I learned was the first day. Or the most powerful thing that I learned was like the last day, the last 15 minutes of the program. Or somebody they'll come up to me and they'll say, you know what, David, the most important, valuable thing I heard today was you said XYZ at 10:30. And then I went to the bathroom and so was in the bathroom and she said X. And then it hit me. And so it was just that little chance comment in the bathroom that made the difference for that person that day. And so we want to foster these kinds of happenings. And so that's why we're really serious about making sure we can attend. Also, from a leadership point of view, one of the things that we need to learn and demonstrate is what we call commitment. What does it mean to give your word to other human beings to say, I will be there for you? This is something that we can all work on throughout our lives, and we can all think about from a leadership point of view. What happens when someone says, I'm there for you, and then when you actually need that person to be there, they're not there for you, right? And so there is something about presence and commitment that's an important part of this learning. Thank you. Hiroshi, please.
Yes. So this is a fascinating. This is the very first time I'm listening to this, and I have a question. Somehow, I don't know this is the right question or not, but this is Volunteer New York, right?
Yes.
But what's the volunteer part? I mean, part. I don't understand. This looks like this is a great learning opportunity, something accomplishing, and just fascinating. But I don't understand why this is you call volunteer. So please explain.
Got it. Thank you. Natasha, would you like to say something about that, wearing your Volunteer New York hat? And I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I can put that hat on. I also see it, Dylan, unless you'd like to answer.
You take a crack at it and I'll clean up.
Hershey, that's a really great question. So Volunteer New York is the organization that both myself and Dylan work for. Volunteer New York has many programs, one of which is Leadership Westchester. Leadership Westchester is not a volunteer program. It does touch on civic engagement and service during it, but it's a professional development program that we run. So it's separate from our other volunteer programs that we offer.
I understand. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
We got it.
Dylan, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah,
so that's
no,
the reason.
I mean, the only thing I'd add, you know, as Natasha said, you know, it's a personal and professional development program. You know, many individuals, their mission is, and Volunteer New York, you know, we are a volunteer mobilization and civic engagement organization. And many individuals, as they're creating their mission and and sort of defining the impact they want to have on their community, you know, often that is in sort of the civic engagement or certainly, you know, community leader space. And so that's how, as an organization that promotes volunteerism and civic engagement, Leadership Westchester sort of fits within, you know, one of our many mission delivery strategies.
I got it. Thank you very much.
The only thing I'll add from a leadership point of view is our perspective, my perspective on leadership is that leadership is about contribution. That is an individual or a group of individuals contributing to the world around them in a positive way. You can't have leadership without that piece, that crucial piece of contribution.
Okay.
And so whether one gets paid or one doesn't get paid isn't really so important. But of course, we all have the opportunity, and most people who are engaged in their communities are doing many of those things without getting paid. They're doing it as volunteers. And so they're
Okay.
leading the community forward in some way that they have an interest in.
Okay. I got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking that, Hiroshi. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should have added earlier that I am also a graduate of Leadership Westchester. And I actually went through the program before I was on the Volunteer New York staff. And one of the ways in which I am living the mission that I created through the program is through the work that I now do with Volunteer New York.
I see. Okay.
What
Thank you.
Dylan is referencing mission. One of the important parts of the program is to create a personal mission statement for your life as a leader and how you want to lead it. So if you work for organizations, most organizations these days have some kind of a mission statement that expresses the essence of what that organization is and what it's here to do. We want to have everyone be just as clear for themselves what it is they want to do with their life. Because
Okay.
we believe that when people are really clear about that, they make a more aligned and impactful contribution to the world. Shauna, you had a hand up. Is it Shauna?
Shayna.
Shayna, thank you, Shayna.
Hi,
Please.
everyone. I guess my question is, because you guys get a lot of applications, how many applications do you guys get? And then obviously you kind of encourage people if they don't get in the first round, do you get feedback? Or is it just like a yes or no? And then how do we know if I know we would know if we didn't get it the first round. Do you guys give any feedback for us, or it's really just
That's a good question. The process is, I won't say how many people apply, but I will say that for those who don't get in, they do get a message that says, we're very sorry we couldn't find a place for you in this class. And by the way, when you apply, you get your application fee back. So there is a fee to apply. I'll go through the application process in just a minute. But it is free to apply. And so you'll get a notice saying that you're not in this year's class. We always encourage people to apply again. Some do, some don't. But we take special note of that when they do apply the second time, because that tells us that something in them is really strong about their interest in this program. And so it doesn't mean that we're going to guarantee them a spot by any stretch, but it does tell us something. And some people do call us up afterwards and say, can you give me any feedback on my application? And if they do, we give them feedback. There's a committee that discusses all of the applications. And I'm always willing to give feedback as I'm one of the committee members. Let me talk for just a minute about the application process since we're on that topic. The application process is open right now and it runs through July. Do you remember what the last date is?
18th.
July 18th, thank you. So between now and July 18th, you can apply. The application process is you fill out an application form and the documents there, and then you'll have an interview. You'll be interviewed by a pair of graduates. And so the application is a form that you can download from that website that we put on in the chat earlier. And you'll talk a little bit about your volunteer background or how you've contributed to the community in the past. But again, we're not looking for people who are the most accomplished there. We're just trying to understand what your background is. So you'll fill out the application form. You'll attach a resume. So again, we can understand what your background is. We're not looking for the biggest title or the biggest companies or anything like that. We just want to understand a little more about who you are. You'll also have a maximum one-page essay, which is essentially, why are you interested in Leadership Westchester and what do you want to do with your learning from it afterwards? And you may be really clear about that. You may not be 100% clear about that. That's okay. We want to understand where your head is at. So there's the application form, there's the resume, there's the essay, and then there's the application fee, $250. You send all that in. Then you will be scheduled. You get to choose an interview date sometime in June or July. And then if you're accepted into the class, that $250 fee goes towards the full tuition. If you are not accepted into the class, the $250 is refunded back to you in another month or so. So it is free to apply. So we do the applications through July 18th. We finish up the interviews around that time, a little bit after that for the people who apply at the last minute. And then we choose the class by the beginning of September. You already have the dates, so they're in your calendar. And if you're in the class, we'll kind of give you instructions on what to do before the program starts in October. And if you're not in the class, you get notice that you weren't accepted this year and that your refund will be coming. Are there any questions about the application process?
I just want to add a couple of things to what you
Sure.
said, David. We actually got rid of the download option on the application. It is all
Okay.
submittable online, but you
Good.
can save as you work your way through it. And if you have any issues with that, you can use the contact information on there. Both my email and our colleague Katie's email is on there if you need any technical support. The other thing I want to say is refunds, if you are not in the chosen for the class, usually happen mid-October. That's per our timeline. It's laid out on the application as well.
Part of the application, you'll be asked to provide 2 references to. Sometimes we want to call those folks and get some more perspective on who you are. So it's designed not to be onerous. We don't want it to be so difficult, but we want to understand as much as we can about you through that process. Okay, any other questions about the application part of it? Okay, then let's hear some more general questions, please, especially for our 2 class members. Tammy, I see you there. I'm glad to see you there today. I'm sure you must have a question.
I've been debating a few, but I don't know. I had some for the people that are Natasha and I guess there's 3 on here who have like either going through it or been through it. I kind of wanted to know what you expected beforehand and then kind of what surprised you most coming out of it. But then for the current class, that doesn't really apply.
Well, they're near the end. They might be able to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to ask?
I can start. So I really did it for myself. I was going through either gonna change my career completely or get a big promotion at my current job. And I was going back and forth with David and knowing him from before, he really like pushed me to do it and like realizing that leadership wasn't just a job title, it was like just leading myself, right? As
Yeah.
an individual. Um, and you start learning that through the whole process of like meeting so many diverse people in the group. You start I didn't expect to become friends with a lot of them. We're all in different paths in our lives and different stages, and we all like kind of connect in some way or form. So I think that I really didn't expect. I knew that I wanted to be around peers who were looking to grow personally and just in life. And I did get that, and I'm getting that as now. And I didn't expect to be as confused as I was as when I got in. I feel like the more I go through this process, the more questions I have, and the more I've learned that I don't know myself that much. Like I'm learning to know this new version of myself as a leader and as an individual. So I guess like this is like the start of a journey, how David says like you kind of think about it before leadership of Westchester and even like the application process. All those questions that it has, I was like, oh, this is so long. Like, but it really made me think about like myself. And then once you get into the program, all those questions like continuously are in the back of your head.
Right.
A lot of the questions you keep coming back to and just really thinking more about who you are a little bit deeper. So that's
Yeah.
really been my experience.
Yeah, I would echo that in so many ways, but I've known David for a long time, working for Volunteer New York. Also gonna raise the flag that I administer the program in the back end. So I'm helping David with the prep, printing and all of that, ordering lunches. But Sally, what do you want for next week? I haven't decided yet. Um, but I also have a unique perspective where my mother went through it in 2020. And, you know, when I knew I was ready for leadership, there is this weird light bulb moment, and I don't know how to define it. But when I knew I was ready for leadership, I also didn't know what I was ready for. So I came into leadership knowing, the volunteer New York side, knowing the administrative, knowing what my mother went through, what friends have gone through, other colleagues. And we've talked a lot about how it's a personal and professional development program. I went in with one mindset and my personal view, and this is just for things, it's, not view of the world or anything, just like my view of myself was
Mhm.
completely turned on its head and upside down and backwards and probably sent to Tanzania or something. Like it was completely thrown out the window. And David and I had many conversations about that. And looking back at who I was in October, there were parts of this person there, but it's a different person. It is there. I got more awareness. I actually asked David one time, is there such a thing as too much awareness? And he said no. Still skeptical on that answer, David. But there are things I've learned about myself that have solidified the professional side of my development. And they've really gone hand in hand in a beautiful way. And like Sally said, where I'm still gaining questions. It is a lifelong journey, but I'm also gaining friends that can help me answer that questions. I'm gaining clarity on when I should ask those questions. And many of which the time hasn't come to ask them. It's not time for me to understand them yet.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Tammy. That turned out to be a good question after all. I hope so anyway.
Look at that.
Thank you. Who else has a question? Now's your chance, folks. This is the chance. We're right here. We're talking about it. Anything that's on your mind, now is the time to ask. You have 2 class members right here to tell you exactly how good or bad it is.
I'll ask another one if nobody. Oh, there, Ryan has a question.
Okay, we'll hear from
go back.
Ryan and then we'll go back to Tammy, please.
Sorry, Tammy, you can go right back to it. I'm curious because you mentioned the alumni and you're a part of the alumni group. Does the alumni come back and participate in some of the classes and help, maybe navigate you through your 9-month journey?
Absolutely. We believe that one of the big values of the Leadership Westchester experience is the opportunity to grow your personal network. And so we encourage the class members to interact with alums. And so that starts the very first class. In fact, before the class starts at 9 o'clock on the first day, we actually have breakfast with alums starting at 8. And so we have an hour of time where everyone's meeting their classmates as well as meeting a bunch of alums. And then that also continues at session 6. In the middle of the program, there's another breakfast that everybody, that alums are invited to, and whoever shows up, and it's another great opportunity to meet some folks. I invite 2 alums to come back, 2 different alums to come to every single session. So everyone gets to meet 2 more people. So they meet another 20 people over the course of the program who are alums. And some of them were alums from a year or 2 ago. Some of them were 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago even. And so again, it's about meeting more people and having this kind of community of people that you can get to know. And so some of the people in the class will follow up with all those alums. Some will just follow up with 1 or 2 that kind of catch their attention or they seem to hit it off with during the session. And after the program is done, you become an alum and then you get to attend the alumni programs. So there's programming for alums. So for example, next week on Thursday, we're doing a program called Mission Possible, where we invite alums back to think about how are they actually leading themselves after they left the Leadership Westchester program, and how can they make sure that they stay connected to who they are, what matters to them, and how can they operationalize that out in the community. And so for many people, it's a great refresher and it's a great kind of reunion to go back into the room and have that Leadership Westchester experience again. We do other programming like that over the course of the year. We've done programs in the past on executive presence and emotional intelligence and other things like that we don't get to in the program. And so it's an opportunity to continue the learning and to get to continue to meet more people. Does that answer your question, Ryan? Great.
Yes, thank you so much.
Too is when you meet alum and you're going through the process and the homework assignment, you like right away connect with that homework assignment. Right now we have one, and I saw Judge Rice, who is here near Rochelle. I was like, I'm having this problem with this homework, and he's like, oh, like let me help you. So just randomly, so they're really great and they're really friendly and always like open to help with your journey.
Yeah, we also have an alumni directory with that we update on an annual basis with where people are, who they are. It's all, almost 500 alum. And because it is such a strong network of individuals, if there's something that you need, like a question that you have that you're talking to David about, he'll make a connection to an alum that might be a great person to help you through that conundrum.
Yeah, people do that all the time. People call me up and say, "Hey, do you know anybody who's in the insurance business?" "Yeah, class of 2019. He runs an insurance business." "Great. Can you connect me?" Yeah, it's easy. All right, thank you. Back to Tammy now. Tammy, you had a question.
Um, well, one is just tactical, and it's probably in the application directions, but I noticed a thing about like if you have a nonprofit sponsor you, and I wanted to just make sure that that information is in somewhere you can find it in the
Yes.
application process
Yeah,
of like, what does it take to get that sponsorship or what's required from the nonprofit?
So there is a spot where it's asked who's paying, yourself, your employer, or something else, and it walks you through all the information there.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Yeah, and I actually process the financial side of things. So Tammy, if there's any questions, you'll see my email there, and I'm happy to talk with you about that.
Amazing. Okay, thank you.
Renee, I saw you pop up on video there. Do you have a question?
Yes, so this is for Tasha, but I didn't want to cut Melinda off because she had a question too. So
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I missed Melinda. Where is Melinda?
Oh, here.
Yeah, please.
Thank
Melinda,
you.
go ahead.
This is kind of a random question, but I'm just wondering, I used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I have a friend who went through Leadership San Francisco.
Got it. Yep.
And as we're talking, I was wondering, is Leadership Westchester just a standalone program, or is there some sort of national network where this program is done in different locations, or if it just happens to have, maybe the one in San Francisco just happens to have the same name, but I was curious.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Melinda. I had forgotten about it, but it's very important, actually. There are many, many, many counties throughout the country that have a program with a similar name. There is Leadership Rockland, there's Leadership Dutchess, there's Leadership Orange, and all across the country. And those things were originally set up by an organization in, I think it's Indiana or Iowa, to try to get people together in different counties to get to know the movers and shakers of counties. And so almost all of those programs operate the same way. They assemble a bunch of people, and then they have a topic for the day, let's say education. And they invite in usually one or two speakers who are familiar with that particular topical area. They'll talk a little bit about what's going on there. The people can ask them questions, and then the person leaves and they go home. And the people in the class talk a little bit about it. And they look at different topics like education and seniors and the environment and the arts. And the idea is to connect the people in the class to people who are active in all those areas. It's totally different from the Leadership Westchester experience. In fact, when Leadership
Sounds
Westchester
like it.
started,
Yeah.
when Leadership Westchester started, it was like that. And what we used to do when I first started the program, actually I went through the program myself and graduated in 2003, and then I became a facilitator a couple of years later. And at that particular time, that's what it was. We invited one or two people in, and we learned a little bit about that particular topical area, and then they left, and we had these conversations about them as leaders afterwards. And what we found, unfortunately, was that many of the people who were invited in as leaders had leadership positions, but they weren't very good as leaders. Like they didn't answer the questions, or they couldn't anticipate what it was that the audience needed to hear about their topical area, so we didn't learn very much from them. Or maybe, their answers were run-on answers that, didn't make any sense or something like that. And so people came away with the impression that that person's not a very good leader from my point of view. But there wasn't real study of what leadership is. And there wasn't any skill building necessarily for the people themselves to say, I need to build my own leadership skills, my own leadership perspective. And so in the Leadership Westchester program, we actually had at that time full day sessions. And so we had time afterwards with the previous facilitator to spend time learning that stuff. And so what happened actually was in 2008, 2009, when the recession hit, a lot of the organizations that had been sending people to Leadership Westchester said, we've laid off a lot of people. The people who are left are doing 2 or 3 jobs. and we feel uncomfortable to have them out of the office for 10 full days. In addition to their vacation and holidays and all that stuff, we don't think we can swing full days. And I said, well, I just taken the program over. I said, can you swing half days? They said, yeah, we could do that. And so then we had the choice. Do we want to continue half a day with those 1 or 2 uninspiring leaders, or do we want to do the personal development? And so we actually interviewed, we had a bunch of alums interview a whole bunch of graduates. And we asked them a couple of very important questions. And one of them was, did you have a particular area of interest before the program, like education or seniors or the arts or the environment? And were you active in some way in the community in that area? And for everyone who said yes, we said, okay, then after Leadership Westchester, how active have you been in that area compared to any other areas that you learned about in the program? And what every single person said was, I'm still active in that area and I don't care about all the others. And so someone who was active in the arts didn't do anything with their learning from education. And someone who's active in, let's say, the environment didn't really have any activity involving seniors at all. And so in a sense, all of that time was wasted because they didn't turn it into some kind of activity afterwards. So it was an easy decision for us to say, if we're going to focus on one thing, let's focus on personal development. So anyone that you hear who's been through even something nearby like Leadership Rockland or Leadership Dutchess or something, it's actually a quite different program. So I'm really glad you asked that, Melinda. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was very interesting. Yeah, interesting background. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, Renee, thank you.
So this is a question for Tasha. You obviously have a lot of prior knowledge and experience and touch points and even some insider knowledge with the program. So what made you decide that this was the year for you?
Oh, that's a really great question. So about when my mom applied first. My mom applied, David, was it 2 times or 3 times?
I think it was 2, I can't remember, maybe 2, maybe 3.
My mom applied at least 2. So around her second application, I was also starting to think about leadership, where I wanted to take my career. I've been working in nonprofits for a while, and what did I want to do next? Given the stages of our career, she and I agreed, and because she had applied previously, she and I agreed she would apply and do the program first. So that was an easy check. So she started 2019, graduated class of 2020. Then things happened in the world. We were in a pandemic. I changed careers. I was laid off from a job that honestly I didn't like anyways. I spent a year trying to decide where I wanted my career to go. And each of these times when the application opened, the application period has always been about the same. I kept saying, I think this is the year I'm going to apply, but maybe I just need to find a new job first, or maybe I just need to figure this out. I kept giving myself excuses. In 2023, I came back to Volunteer New York to work full time. I've been working with Volunteer New York in volunteer capacities, contract capacities, all different ways. And I had also, just graduated. So in 2022, I graduated from a different leadership program with the Business Council of Westchester. 2023, I graduated from one with Nonprofit Westchester, slowly getting all the notches in my belt for Westchester leadership development. And 2023, I'm like, okay, this is the year. Except I started in June in a new job and I needed to get settled, and it wasn't the year. So I said, okay, the next year is my year. And it was. I gave myself a year to think. Now, this was way overkill, but I gave myself a year to think about my application. Even though I worked for Volunteer New York, I still had to apply. I still had to go through the process. Ultimately, it was, probably 5 years in the making of, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready. I'm just going to submit it and see what happens. Right. And again, I had all this prior knowledge, as you said, Renee. I had my mom go through it. I had colleagues. I administer the program. I'm the one sending the invoices out once the committee chooses the classes. But none of that had any factor into me being ready. It was my own professional development and my own professional career that had more of a factor to when it was time for me to do leadership. I also want to add one piece of advice that my mother gave me when I started the program. And I'm gonna out someone on this call because they are my mother's colleague. Hi, Brian. Um, one of the best pieces of advice, if you have the capability, if you are working or whatever else you have going on in your life, on the half days of leadership, don't go into the office. You can still go home and work, respond to emails, meetings, but giving yourself that time to process what you learned that day. The half days are from 8:30 to 1:30. You get home, depending on how close you live to the location, 2 o'clock, 2:30, maybe whatever it might be, depending on traffic. But give yourself that time to process and versus going into the office where everyone might need you all of a sudden. That space adds to what you're getting out of the program and what you're putting into it. And this is by no means me saying don't work. That's, between you and your role, don't do XYZ. That's between you and what you have going on, what other commitments, but giving yourself that time after class is really important to just help continue facilitating the learning.
Thank you for mentioning that, Tasha. That's something actually a lot of graduates, participants have told me, that when they go to the program, they don't want to go back to work because everything crowds in and they need to give a little more time to all the really important stuff that they're thinking about in the program. And so a lot of people will do exactly what she's saying. But Sally, do you want to add anything from Renee's question or after that?
No, I also had colleagues who did it, and I know a couple people who've done it, and I just kind of took the leap. I knew I'm a risk taker, so I was just like, I love David. He came to do trainings at my job with I work for the Boys and Girls Club. We're a non-for-profit organization, and my boss at the time was in his class and loved what was going on with the mission work, and he brought it to our organization, and I loved it because it gave me more questions, and I've always loved to be a good leader or try to be the best leader that I can. And I think this just gave me structure. So I took the leap, and David was like a great person to answer my questions and just tell me, like, just do it. Why not? Maybe you get in, maybe you don't. Um, so I think that was my safety blanket. I was like, oh, maybe I won't get in. And then I did, and it's been a great experience.
Well, folks, I said we would go for no more than an hour, and we're at an hour. So we're going to close the call now. Let me put my email address in here so anyone can contact me if you have any more questions. Severance@newdoorleadership.com. New Door Leadership is my company. I'm not an employee of Volunteer New York. I'm an outside contractor, technically. So my business is New Door Leadership. You can reach me at any time at severance@newdoorleadership. Thank you, everyone. It's been such a pleasure to meet all of you. If anyone has a question that you really need to ask right now, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. That's fine. But I want to thank everyone for your interest in the program. I really hope you'll consider applying. As has been said by many class members in the past, you may not get into the first class you apply to, but you get into the right class for you. So any questions coming up? I'll stay on the call for just a couple more minutes. And if you have anything that comes up between now and the time you choose to apply, if you do, feel free to reach out to me anytime. It's my pleasure to meet all of you, and I hope to see you in Leadership Westchester soon.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
you.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Your email,
Yes.
David, your email at
Yep.
the new, sorry, I could
New
not.
Door Leadership.
New Door.
Right. It's like opening a new door for yourself.
New Door and
.com.
Oh, okay.
newdoorleadership.com.
New Door is one word?
Yes. New Door
Okay, great.
Leadership. It's all one word. New Door Leadership.
New Door Leadership. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay.
The reason I named the company New Door Leadership was when I was forming the company, I had a friend of mine who was a marketing person interview many of my clients that I had served in the past. And he asked them, what did David do for you? How would you describe what David did for you when he was working with you? And a lot of them said, he opened up new doors for us in how we could lead ourselves, or he opened up new doors on how we could
I
work
see.
together.
Okay.
So many people said opening new doors. That's why I called it New Door Leadership.
All right. Very good. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you very
Take
much,
care.
Hiroshi.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.